on with me now. Go with me now. I'm gonna take you down. Go with me now. I'm gonna show you how. Go with me now.
All right, homeschoolers, you guys ready for this? I just wanted to review the free response practice for the exam. Since your exam will have multiple choice as well as a free response, and there will be multiple different free responses, so please learn how to do this as I go through this example. Otherwise, you probably won't do very well. Anyway, assume the U.S. economy is currently... Oh, by the way, we are on page 28 of your notes packet, where it says free response practice for exam. Anyway, it says assume the U.S. economy is currently operating at a full employment level of output. Okay, now that's important because at this point you guys should know that when you're talking about the aggregate demand, aggregate supply graph, full employment output means that all three curves intersect at the same location. So it says to draw an ADAS graph that demonstrates the current level of output, and then I'll go ahead and label those quantities, the 3% and the GDP of 19.5 trillion. Anyway, so we will label the y-axis as price level, and the x-axis real GDP, or you could put output or income, but I prefer real GDP because that covers everything. We always have our long-run aggregate supply curve somewhere in the middle there, and then because we're at full employment output, our other two curves intersect along with the long-run aggregate supply curve. So I've got aggregate demand downsloping, short-run aggregate supply upsloping. All three curves intersect at the same location, and I'm going to show a 3% increase in the price level and 19.5 trillion as our GDP. All right, so that's pretty straightforward. Number two. Now assume that Mexico, a major trading partner of the U.S., goes into a severe recession. So the point here is that since they're a major trading partner, they probably buy a lot of U.S. goods. And if they go into a recession, then they're probably not going to buy as many U.S. goods. So let's remind ourselves of something. Aggregate demand is equal to consumption plus investment plus government purchases plus our net exports. So if our net exports decrease because of Mexico's recession, then that's going to end up changing our graph in part one. So first, demonstrate how the Mexican recession's impact on U.S. exports will affect the U.S. economy. Okay, so fewer exports means there's less aggregate demand. So our aggregate demand curve is going to shift to the left, which gives us a new equilibrium where there is less GDP than before and the price level has gone down. So basically that's a recessionary level of output. The U.S. has moved into a recession as a result of the Mexican recession. All right? Now, number three, if you were advising President Trump, would you push for higher or lower taxes in the United States to mitigate the effects of the Mexican recession on the U.S. economy? Explain. All right, so basically, let's think this through. Higher taxes would result in more of my money going to the government, and then I would have less money to spend. So higher taxes would result in less consumption spending. Whereas lower taxes in the U.S., that would tend to increase my purchasing power, and so consumption spending would go up. So if I wanted to mitigate the effects of the Mexican recession on the U.S. economy, I would want to lower taxes. Okay, and then it does say to explain. So if I lower taxes will increase Americans' disposable income. Okay, that's our income after taxes. And if our income after taxes increases, then consumption spending will increase. Okay, and then if consumption increases, that aggregate demand curve is going to shift back to the right so that the effect on our economy will be mitigated. So what would that policy have on savings and investment in the U.S. economy? Explain that one. So I'm going to show you a little equation that sometimes we use. The letter Y refers to income. And our income is always equal to our level of consumption and our level of savings. All right? And by the way, that level of income, that's really referring to our disposable income. Okay? So if our disposable income increases, that means we can now increase both our consumption and our savings. Okay? Now, why is that a big deal? Well, remember once we learned that savings equals investment. So if our savings increases because of lower taxes, that puts more money into the loanable funds market, which would increase investment spending. So let me draw that out. It doesn't say to, but I'm going to draw it out anyway so that y'all can visualize this. Okay, so that's our loanable funds market. When we see that savings goes up, we're going to see the savings curve, the supply curve, shift to the right, which will lower interest rates. Lower interest rates are going to increase investment. So I would expect both savings to increase and investment spending to increase. And so that increase in investment would also increase the aggregate demand. So basically, if you lower taxes, you're going to see greater consumption and you're going to see greater investment spending. Okay, both of those are going to lead to an increase in aggregate demand. So we would expect U.S. output to increase. And that's all due to the lower taxes. Now you'll notice, since we're living in a time where the Congress and the President are actually working on a little bit of a policy move to help the economy, you'll see that one of those policy moves is to put more money into consumers' hands. And this is the reason. Okay. Anyway, that is your review on the free response portion of the exam. Your free response will look very much like this. It could be a little bit different. You might see where our economy is booming and it's too strong, and so you'll want to decrease aggregate demand. Or our economy could be weak in a recession and you want to find a way to increase aggregate demand. So basically, in order to answer this question, you have to know all the things that will shift aggregate demand either to the right or to the left. And then to change it back the way it was, you'll need to know, again, all the things that will shift aggregate demand to either the right or the left. So that is it. I wish you the best of luck on your test, and I hope you're having a good time homeschooling.